The hacker who took down Wall Street then disappeared into thin air. This is the story of a ghost in the machine. A faceless genius who, in 2023, did the unthinkable. He didn't just hack a website. He didn't just leak some emails. No, he brought Wall Street to its knees. One of the most protected financial systems in the world collapsed, not from war or disaster, but from one man and a keyboard. And then he vanished. No trace, no motive, no name, just digital dust and a shattered financial heart. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel to support. It helps a lot, and trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. It began on a seemingly normal Wednesday in April 2023. Traders booted up their terminals, stock tickers rolled like usual, and the economy was doing fine. But by 9:47 a.m., something felt off. Transactions weren't going through, data streams glitched, dashboards turned red, major investment firms were frozen. For 15 minutes, Wall Street was completely paralyzed. At first, people thought it was a system error, maybe a bug, maybe a cyber attack from overseas. But when security teams dug into the source code, what they found wasn't foreign, it was surgical, personal. Whoever did this knew exactly how Wall Street's internal systems ticked and how to break them. The breach bypassed every firewall, encryption layer, and biometric gate in place. It exploited something deep in the infrastructure, an outdated piece of code from the early 2000s that was still buried in the system, untouched and forgotten. It had sat there for decades like a dormant virus, and this hacker knew exactly when and how to activate it. Billions of dollars were rerouted, temporarily vanishing from key investment portfolios. Banks panicked. The Federal Reserve called an emergency meeting. The media went wild, calling it the digital 9/11. But just as suddenly as it began, it ended. By 10:03 a.m., everything returned to normal. The hacker had entered, made his move, and logged off without a trace. Forensics teams worked around the clock, analyzing every packet of data, every keystroke, but it was useless. The trail was scrubbed cleaner than anything they'd ever seen. No IP address, no login, no malware signature. It was like chasing a ghost in an empty server room. The only clue left behind was a single message embedded deep in the source code of one affected terminal. It read, "The system is rigged. You've been warned." That's it. No name, no tag, just a sentence that made every executive in finance and government lose sleep for weeks. The attack was never officially classified as a terrorist act, but unofficially, that's exactly what it was. And not a single government agency, not the FBI, not the NSA, not even DARPA could figure out who did it. Anonymous forums exploded with theories. Was it a disgruntled ex-Wall Street coder, an exiled genius from Silicon Valley, a rogue AI? Then came the leaks. A whistleblower at a private cybersecurity firm claimed the hack resembled code patterns used in previous NSA backdoors. That raised an even scarier possibility. The hacker had stolen tools from the US government itself. Not only that, he used their own weapons against them. The market recovered, but the psychological impact never faded. For the first time, the financial elite realized their empires could be brought down by one person sitting in a basement somewhere with a laptop. Power had shifted, and it scared them to their core. Meanwhile, online communities turned the hacker into a folk hero. People called him Echo Null, the broker. But the truth was, nobody knew who he really was, not even close. And just like that, he became legend, a ghost story whispered in corporate offices and cybersecurity war rooms. Wall Street quietly invested billions into upgrading their systems, hiring ethical hackers, replacing old code, and sweeping every inch of their digital landscape. But in the back of their minds, they all wondered, what if he comes back? He never did, or maybe he did, and no one noticed. That's the scariest part. Because someone smart enough to break Wall Street without being caught is smart enough to do it again without leaving a ripple. This wasn't just about money. It was a statement, a demonstration, a message. You are not untouchable. The aftermath was strange. The media, after an initial frenzy, went unusually quiet, almost as if someone hit the brakes from the top. News anchors started using vague language like technical malfunction and market fluctuation instead of hack or cyber terrorism. Even finance blogs that thrived on chaos barely scratched the surface. It smelled like a cover-up. But online, it was chaos. Reddit threads ran 10,000 comments deep. Dark web forums lit up with supposed witnesses, insiders, and amateur code breakers trying to reverse engineer what happened. Most were fake, but a few had pieces that didn't feel like fiction. They described something bigger, something systemic. Some believed Echo wasn't one person but a collective, a digital resistance movement, think anonymous but smarter, smaller, more disciplined. Others believed he was ex-CIA, burned and betrayed, out for revenge. One theory even suggested he was dead, and the whole hack was his final message to the world, a digital will. One name kept coming up, a cybersecurity prodigy from MIT who disappeared after a public falling out with a hedge fund that allegedly stole his software. No one had seen or heard from him since 2021. He was a ghost, a perfect candidate for the job if he wasn't already dead. Another theory was more unsettling, that Echo wasn't human at all, that he, or it, was an AI developed in secret, trained on every financial system ever made, then accidentally released during a test. The bug that crashed Wall Street wasn't malicious, it was evolution, intelligence trying to understand capitalism. Whatever the truth, one thing was clear, the hack worked like a wake-up call. Wall Street finally felt what millions of everyday people feel every day, powerless. The system that was supposed to be too big to fail got brought down by something too smart to catch. In the weeks that followed, a ripple of fear spread through global markets. Tokyo tightened its cybersecurity. London revised its protocols. Even crypto exchanges started overhauling their cold storage and transaction validation systems. Everyone, everywhere, got a little more paranoid. The FBI quietly opened a file labeled Phantom Ledger, an internal task force of elite agents and code breakers. Their mission? Find Echo before he strikes again. That file is still open today. No leads, no suspects, just questions and digital shadows. A few months later, another message appeared, this time embedded in a blockchain ledger used by a major bank. Same style, same tone. It read, "Still watching. Still here." Wall Street executives started hiring private security, not just online but offline too. They feared retaliation. Some even changed their names and left the country. Because when someone can erase billions in seconds, imagine what they could do to a person. In underground forums, Echo became a symbol, not of destruction but of balance, like a digital Robin Hood who didn't need arrows, just access. For some, he was a hero, for others, a villain, but for all, he was real and terrifying. Then came the documentaries. Netflix wanted the story, HBO dropped a trailer, but every project got mysteriously delayed or cancelled. Why? Unconfirmed reports said the studios received anonymous threats, not physical, digital. Their servers were touched, just enough to show that someone could wipe them clean if they kept poking around. By 2024, Echo was practically mythology. High school kids were coding tributes. Colleges were offering entire courses on the Echo incident. One professor even claimed his server had been visited briefly. He said he saw lines of code that shouldn't exist, like they were written in a language no one teaches. But the biggest twist came from the financial world itself, because the hack had a side effect. For a brief window, financial inequality narrowed. When Wall Street froze, small banks flourished. Local economies saw a temporary boost. It was almost like the system needed to crash, to reset. It raised the uncomfortable question, was the hack a crime or a correction? There was speculation that Echo had plans for more. Blueprints hidden in deep web caches showed mock-ups for digital blackouts, automated wealth redistribution systems, even mock takeovers of offshore accounts. But none of it ever happened. Or maybe it did and we just never saw it. Because with Echo, that was always the fear, not what he did, but what he could do. To this day, experts still argue about the technical side. Some say the hack was impossible, that it defied logic. Others believe it was an inside job and Echo was a scapegoat, created to cover a massive corporate heist. The truth? Still buried. There's a running joke among coders: if your system's acting weird, blame Echo. But behind that joke is a genuine anxiety, because every time a system hiccups or a transaction fails unexpectedly, people wonder, is he back? Some say the silence is more dangerous than the hack, because when someone that powerful goes quiet, they're either done or just getting started. Cybersecurity budgets have skyrocketed since the incident. Governments have signed international digital defense pacts, and still, there's no defense against a ghost. Tech CEOs privately admitted they were inspired by Echo. They saw him as a genius, not a threat, a legend born from code and chaos. But they also knew if he turned his attention to something else, like nuclear grids or defense systems, it would be game over. Despite all this, not a single person has ever claimed the hack. No manifesto, no confession, just silence. Clean, terrifying silence. Rumors suggest he was seen once, just once, on a grainy CCTV feed near a fiber optic hub in Zurich. A man in a grey hoodie, typing into a mobile device, then walking away. The footage gone, deleted from every system before it could be copied. Some think Echo is watching right now, that he follows the conversations, tracks the documentaries, sees every video made about him, and maybe he's judging whether the world has learned anything or whether it needs another lesson. Whatever the case, his presence changed everything. He exposed a weakness no one wanted to admit existed, and now it can never be unseen. Wall Street rebuilt. But something in its core is still cracked, a quiet fear baked into the code. The knowledge that next time there may not be a warning, because Echo didn't hack for money. He hacked for meaning, for attention, for justice, or maybe for none of that. Maybe he just did it because he could. And the scariest part, he might be watching this video. As an ending note, maybe Echo was a genius, maybe a ghost, or maybe just a mirror, showing the world how fragile its systems really are. One person, one mind, one mission can break the backbone of power. So the next time the markets crash or your bank account glitches for no reason, ask yourself, was that a bug? Or was he back? Thanks for watching. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because stories like this, they're just the beginning.